Mike Lyons, welcome to the Cape Coral Investor Network podcast. One of the reasons why I have you on is you are a local legend. I mean, if you go to SWFL REIA, everyone knows who you are. Obviously, you're a director there. You also manage your own property management company called Lyons Real Estate, and you have a very unique perspective on what it means to manage properties here locally in Cape Coral. Mike, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Good. Thank you for the intro. That was the best I ever had, probably. That was good.
I rehearsed it several times. I'm happy it came out well.
It came out good. It came out good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I wanted to specifically dive into is I obviously do a lot of new construction, and a lot of clients are looking at obviously having reduced maintenance, lower insurance premiums, and just having the ability to attract the best tenants possible. And Mike, you've done your own research, and you also realize that they're also a lot easier to manage, and because of that, you can offer unique incentives. Mike, can you talk to us a bit more about what you do to help clients who are purchasing new construction homes?
Sure. So, I mean, getting a brand new home obviously comes with a lot of warranties, and obviously brand new, the simple stuff that breaks down when a house is 30 years old doesn't happen on new construction. So it's an easier asset to manage. And also for brand new, you get top dollar. So, I mean, you're getting typically really good clients with, very little brain damage when it comes to repairs, which are the two biggest things that affect your cash flow. So with that, I mean, I charge a lot less on new construction just because I can, and it makes sense for the investor, and my company can still operate in a way that it makes sense for us too. We charge 5% for our management on new construction. And most companies, 8 to 10% is usually the market norm, or they'll do 6% plus a whole bunch of fees that takes you to 12 or 14% by the time you're all said and done. But yeah, I can do it at 5%. And again, a brand new construction asset is a phenomenal asset to purchase, especially in this market with the demand that there is for homes right now. And even building a property or building a home right now takes 12, 14 months. So it's taken a while. So there's not a bombardment of brand new construction being done, although there's a lot going on. It just takes forever to complete. So huge demand. You get the best rates with brand new. You have all your, a lot of what you just bought covered, in warranties. So no repairs for a long time, and good tenants. So I mean, I could probably go on so many. I can talk a lot more, but yeah, just keep going. What kind of questions you have about that? Because there's a lot to be said there, but it's an awesome asset. And from a management standpoint, we've got a real good system to get really, really good tenants paying top dollar on these properties. So,
yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, offering 5%, it's something that you calculated and you understood that for a new construction property, you're going to get a lot less phone calls because obviously everything is brand new. So even if a tenant breaks something, we know who did it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole concept. I mean, again, as the market rises too, I want to give my tips away to other managers that could watch this, but as the market rises and the rates go up, my cost of doing business doesn't go up tons. I mean, in comparison to what a lot of companies have to deal with. But at 5% with the higher rates, I'm fine as functioning as a company, and it's a really good rate for the investors. So it's a win-win in my opinion. And I'm not looking to manage a property and get as much money as I can out of it for 6-8 months a year. I want to I'm in it for long haul. So, 10 years later, I want clients that are happy, and I have several like that are happy. We charge accordingly, and it's got to make sense for both parties, and it does. And it's been great. I mean, we really get good feedback on it because I don't know of a company that can match what we charge, which, it's all about beating your competition in that sense. So, yeah.
Right. No, and it's super important because from the investor standpoint, I always make this joke, everyone's going after your profit margin.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Insurance, tax collector, to the investors. Yeah, you're right. They're all going after that. And again, at the end of the goal of a property manager, in my opinion, regardless of whether it be with my company or another company, should be the profit and loss for the owner or the investor you represent should be as best as possible. And if it is, that's longevity. They want to work with you for a long time, and keep the doors of communication wide open. If that happens, everyone's happy. So,
right, in which if you're looking to find ways to grow your profit margins, then you're looking at ways to improve your situations. So obviously, keeping a tenant in your property longer is going to help you out quite a bit. Mike, can you talk us about some of the ways that Lyons Real Estate helps clients or tenants stay in the property longer than they otherwise would?
Sure. Well, getting a stable tenant, I think, is the key to owning rental property. Like the tenant is one of the most important parts of it. And so when you do a background check, we do background checks and we check everything. We do a credit check, we do a criminal background check, we do an eviction nationwide for both, criminal and eviction, nationwide search. We do an income verification. And when I say income verification, I want to see bank statements, pay stubs, or tax returns. I don't want a letter from an employer with a signature off a Word document they printed offline. I want to see actual documentation. So that's super important. And actually, I'll go on that in just a minute, how important that was during COVID to have tenants like that. And then we check their rental references. And in most cases, I'm not so concerned about what their current landlord says. I want to know about the previous, because the current one could say, hey, they're great, only because they're trying to get rid of them out of their property. I want to hear what the previous landlord said about them. And so when someone's filling out an application, it's like, my thought process behind it is you're about to protect or live in a $400,000 asset. You need to qualify to live there. And I mean, almost like we're doing a mortgage, like background check on them, and they have to apply for a mortgage almost to do it. So, because my opinion, the key to a successful investment property and property management company is good tenants. You put one bad tenant in a property and it can waste a whole lot of time, cause a whole lot of damage, and cause a total headache for the owner and have them lose out a lot of money. So we put huge emphasis on the tenants. I'll go back for just a second to discuss the income part of it. We don't, if someone is in a cash-based business, an example would be like a bartender, a rest, waiter, waitress, hair salon, a lot of companies, again, nothing wrong with those professions, but if they can't show what they make, I don't really know how they make, how well they're doing. And not that we wouldn't rent to one, but they've got to show it in writing. And some of those, tax return, bank statement, or pay stub. So what's been successful when we went through COVID, a lot of the cash-based businesses were shut down, hair salons, wet restaurants, that kind of thing. And so we saw almost no turnover because we didn't have tenants based on in industries like that. And again, I guess we got lucky because we didn't know COVID was going to happen, but having really solid tenants that can prove what they make and not just tell you is what you need to do. And that's what we do. So that's been the difference for longevity and having really good tenants for a long time. On average, I'm seeing we're getting at least 3 years across the board on tenants in a property. And in some cases, a lot longer than that. And on rare occasion, less than that. But more often than not, around three years is the average. And my thought process too is the worst thing for an investor is vacancy, by far. I mean, seldom is a property, vacated and it's in perfect shape. So you've got to spend some money on it. And if there's nothing to do to it, you usually need to turn the utilities on, cut the yard, do a few things in the meantime. You're losing money at the end of the day. So vacancy is the worst thing that you can have for an investor. And so we try to avoid that at all costs. High occupancy is a happy owner, happy investor. And another thing too, I own rental property. I don't just manage. And I would say for investors, when they're trying to hire, whether with my company or another company, if you're hiring a property manager that doesn't own rental property, how can they really relate to what you're trying to accomplish? I don't think they can. I mean, they have the concept of my tenants, the tenants that they manage for, and collecting rents and such. But to really comprehend, they're trying to save as much money as you can and make as much money as possible, and look at it from an investor standpoint. So ownership too, with owning rental property, you have a much better outlook on it, in my opinion. And I'm surprised sometimes when companies will, hey, we're a great company. Well, how many properties you guys own? Well, none, but we really know what we're doing. I'm thinking, if you know that, well, why don't you own property? That doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, just kind of a side note.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And there is a perspective of also being empathetic of when you've gone through certain things yourself. Yeah. So same thing, like when I run numbers for my clients to buy properties, yeah. I'm an investor myself. So I run it the same way I would run it. Sure. And so I'm skeptical in the same ways. And there's times where if a client can't close on a deal, I'll jump on it myself. Right? Yeah,
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that I'll say this too. The perspective that a lot of managers do too, again, without having owned property, you wouldn't have that perspective. But I found in hiring a couple of occasions, I buy property locally and out of the state too. And so I've hired management companies. So I know the questions asked. I mean, if anyone knows the questions asked, management company, I know those questions. but I'll go through it, and I feel a lot of times they're sympathetic to tenants. And don't get me wrong, tenants, well-qualified tenants need to be treated right and given a place to live. But I want the interest to be on my behalf, not necessarily on the tenant's behalf. I mean, treat them correctly and honestly and do the right thing. But ultimately, I want my asset protected with the best tenant as possible at the best price with the lowest cost. I mean, that's what you want as an investor. So there's been so many times where I'm thinking, it'd be tough to hire someone that's never owned one and done it before. I couldn't do that, That's just a side note, but I think that's important to mention.
Yeah, super important. And so we talked about some of the lower management fees you have. You offer 5%, where the industry norm, I would say, maybe is closer to 8 to 10%. We talked about some of the strategies of reducing turnover in the property. It could be a major expense to have a property not producing for you for a month and a half or so.
Sure.
And I also want to dive into some of your fees that you offer. Your fees are also lower than the industry average.
Yeah, you're right. So I have 3 fees total. One of those being the 5% management, which is the rent collected. We charge 5% off that. And there's 2 other fees. And for what it's worth, we do not charge anything else. A lot of companies have just kind of nickel and dime stuff that I think is really silly. In some cases, I've heard too, they'll charge a percentage above and beyond the invoice or the expense, an expense to the property. Now we're talking new construction, so it might be a while before you'd have to deal with that. But even then, when you charge above and beyond on an invoice, there's incentive to have invoices. I want incentives to not have invoices. I mean, it goes totally against what a manager should do. So I don't agree with that concept at all. But the only 2 other fees that I have is I charge, again, on new construction, I charge a half month's rent to place a tenant, and that's not charged until we have a qualified tenant that's moving in, and we collect that from the tenant. So there's no setup fee. There's no pay me half month's rent, I'll start working for you. It all happens once the tenant comes. So we have incentive to find someone. And then lastly, if they renew, we charge a $100 fee at the renewal time, and they keep going forward. But the half charge or half month's rent of tenant placement only takes place when it goes vacant after a year, and and we have to go through the process of advertising it and doing the lease and apply. I mean, that's when that all happens again. But the renewal, that renewal fee, if a tenant is there for 10 years, obviously you never have a tenant placement fee again because they're still there. So that's it. Those are the 3 fees: the 5%, the $100 a year renewal fee, and the half month commission on placing a new tenant. And that's it.
Right. And so with obviously owning and managing a property, once in a while, there'll be repairs that are needed. And you mentioned some companies like to invoice 10%, or they automatically add 75%. Some companies are restrictive as to who you can use for the repairs. Some might have their own company that you have to work with. So Mike, you don't work like that. You have your own network of people that you provide as recommendations?
Correct. So I have individuals I've used for years that I throughout the years had to fire and then get new ones and kind of get to the point where I'm really happy with who I have. But none of them work for me. I mean, I don't have an in-house crew. And again, my reasoning, I've heard the argument of, why don't you have an in-house crew taking care of these things? Well, I have to pay the in-house crew. And I mean, I would want to make money to spend my time managing an in-house crew. But I think that incentivizes, again, a company with an in-house crew there's a conflict of interest, in my opinion. If you have an in-house crew going to do work, I would rather make a phone call, or the phone call comes in on repairs, and then say, okay, have you checked this, this, and this? And in some cases, there's repairs that are avoidable, meaning the tenant can handle them. I don't have power in my back bedroom. Well, have you checked the GFI outlet and make sure nothing's tripped? Have you checked the breakers? Simple things. We get a power surge because of a storm in Florida, which is very common. And they can be told, check this, this, and this. Does it work? Okay, we're good to go. And then no cost to the owner. The tenants learn how to handle something. And then, we're all better off, the investor and the tenant and myself. So I do have owners that want specific vendors and contractors to do work on their home. We just make a note, and when that time comes around, we send them. So we're not exclusive to anyone, nor will we ever be. And if I find a contractor not doing what they're supposed to do, good luck to you. On to the next. There's another contract. So yeah, I don't, not exclusive to anyone in that sense. That anyone that can do a good job at the right price and warranty their work. If what I currently have doesn't work, I change. And again, if an owner has someone they want to use, we use them. So.
Yeah, no, definitely well said. One of the reasons why I like talking to you, because you have a unique perspective, right? You're local. You grew up here in Southwest Florida. You graduated down the street,
Yep.
and you've been around forever, right? So you've been a
Yeah,
property manager since you were born.
that's right,
That's what, 15
man.
years of experience?
I'm about 20 years now experience, but yeah, that's
That's-
right. That's right.
Uh,
So yeah, I'm from here and live here and I will die here. I love Southwest Florida. I love the beaches and the water and yeah, I'm going
I
nowhere.
always joke that the worst part of living here is that it's hard to go on vacations because where are you going to go?
Yeah. Go on vacation. That could be Friday night, man. There's vacations here. I mean, meaning
Well,
we live in vacation town. It's wonderful down here.
but you go to the Bahamas and we have better beaches than them. You go to Mexico, it's just we have better beaches. I'm
Yeah.
not going to the East Coast and fighting for a parking spot.
No, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's no other place to go. You
We
just
live in paradise, man. That's how I look at it. I love it here. I love Southwest Florida. I'll be here forever. I my perspective is on this market. I've done it for a long time, and I've kind of tried throughout the years to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And if it can save costs and be more streamlined, it's kind of that's how we do things. So
yeah. And besides being local, one of the things is you carry yourself in a way that has a great deal of loyalty or has a great deal of wanting to be an honest, transparent person. Can you walk us through your background and why you chose this path and why being loyal and honest was so important to you?
well, thank you. I hope I say this the right way without sounding kind of cheesy, but so I got into real estate years and years ago, about 20 years ago, obviously, and at the time was selling investment property for a franchise, but buying and wholesaling investments and rehabbing, typical way most investors start. And I was a kid at the time, I felt like, and I went to sell investment property, and it was like a fourplex, and the guy said, "Well, who's going to manage it?" And I said, "I will." Had no idea. I'd never collected rent in my life or done any of it. And I'm like, I got this. I could read a book, and and again, I'm sure I did it all the wrong way in the beginning, but I did always, and I still do. It's a lot of companies, sadly, or people. I mean, not again. I don't want to bash. There's good companies in Southwest Florida that do a good job with management. I'm not the only one. I would never say that, but some people will try to make a lot of money in a short period of time off one person and then move on to the next victim, we'll say. And that's just a horrible way to do it. It's just dishonest, and I don't like it. If you do a good job and you're honest and upfront with how you operate, and you stick to it, and you return phone calls, and you show up when you're going to show up, and you do what you say you're going to do, that builds trust, and that is a company and that will be around for a long time. And I've tried to do that my entire life. A short story I'll share with you. Years ago, I got contacted by an investment group who had a group of properties,
Right.
and was interested in changing. The numbers didn't make any sense on the repairs and how expensive it was. So I analyzed it for them. I said, "What do you got?" And their average costs were about $25,000 a month. Now it's a big portfolio, but still $25,000 a month made no sense. So they sent it to me to analyze, and I kind of picked out where this is wrong and that's wrong, and the Wagner chart, what are they doing? And anyway, I got the account. And as soon as we took over, our average expenses were $8,000 a month. And again, big portfolio with repairs that were needed from time to time. It was legit. There's expenses, but from $25,000 to 7 or 8. I mean, then I found out the in-house repair group for this company was, family for the manager. And so they were just feeding their whole family off this big investment. And I just thought that's wrong. That's inappropriate, or, unethical and just wrong. But, and again, what assists my company too, I think, in being transparent is when there is an invoice for repairs, we send a copy of the invoice along with the statement. So it's not, they see exactly what happens, and in most cases with pictures. So my thought is, an out-of-state investor who doesn't know me or the company, or at least very well yet, what can we do to gain their loyalty and know that we're trustworthy, and be as transparent as you can? And that's the way. Show them legit expenses, and meet with them when we want to meet with them, be down to earth and honest with them when they ask questions. And, but the biggest complaint on that note, one of the biggest complaints I get is a lack of communication. Has been an issue with other experiences property or investors have had with property management companies. And that's why I give my cell phone number out. Every owner that I work with has my direct cell phone. They need to call me, call me. I mean, phone call doesn't take long. And a lot of times just hearing, "Yeah, we'll handle it," or, "What do you need?" and getting it done is the difference between being frustrated and being like, "Okay, everything's okay, so yeah, complete transparency on communication and expenses, and then people are happy. So
Yeah,
it's worked out great.
Yeah,
It's worked out really good so far. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think one of the things that people who do well, who don't feel like they have to cheat to get ahead, that feel like they're comfortable with themselves and where they are in life, where you've done enough things right. There was a period of time where I think we all were hitting the pavement, we're grinding. Each transaction mattered, and it was a very stressful event. And then it comes to a point, and thank goodness for real estate, because it seems like the two of us kind of had the same path, where you realize like, oh, I'm in a pretty good spot. I don't need to be aggressive on a call. I don't need to try to convince someone of something. I can just transparently say things how they are, and people will respect you for it. And the people that stick will be way more loyal than someone that you've convinced of something, or you trick them into thinking a certain kind of way. People will figure you out with enough interactions. They'll eventually find the truth.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and again, what I do for a living in managing property does not take a genius to do, but it takes systems and it takes consistency.
So that's why I couldn't do it, right?
That's right. That's right. Like, I'm no genius, but I mean, I've done this for a long time. I went to college, I got a master's degree and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't take a genius to manage property. You keep costs down, you keep properties occupied with good tenants at the highest rent rate you can possibly, and you communicate. And again, in a nutshell, that's the trick to the whole business. So it doesn't take the genius to do that. It just takes being dependable and following up and doing little things. And that's the difference between a good and bad company, in my opinion. So it's been good. I mean, it's really good. You're right. I don't sell, this is what I do. This is how I do it. Let's talk about it. And
well, you're not even on social media because you don't like it, and you get.
Yeah, I'm not on social media. Like, I think that's a waste of time. I mean, no, more power to you if you love it, but I don't. I'm not gonna. Right. I don't care what someone ate last night at dinner. I'm not gonna look it up.
Or if you did care, you probably just call them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, talk to them about it. Exactly. Yeah. I just I don't have time for the social media stuff, and I never plan on it being a part of that. Not even. Nothing against it. I had it before, and people from high school that I wasn't friends with in high school were saying, "Hey, let's talk." And we're like, "I didn't like you back then. We're not gonna be friends now. It's all good." So, anyway.
Yeah. So one last question before we wrap up. We talked about a lot of important things. I do want to highlight what you're doing for new construction properties, offering 5% and really low fees throughout. You work diligently to make sure your tenants are happy, that we're finding the right ones, just screening them properly. Right. You also have a close relationship with the investors you work with. You're one of the few property managers that I know that give out their personal cell phones and is responsive, right? Because you can give it out, but if you don't respond to it, what's the point? And one of the things that we talked about a lot was just your background and kind of that you care about the industry. You want it to go well because you're an investor yourself, and you're very empathetic with what investors are going through, especially if they're not local and they're out-of-state investors. The one last question that I have is, what do you personally enjoy most about being a property manager? Because for me, I would be worried about the maintenance, late night calls. Sometimes you're the only person people can yell at.
Yeah. Well, this is going to sound funny. To answer what I most enjoy about it would be, I've done real estate for almost 20 years. I'm more excited about it now than when I was when I first got into it. And I was excited then. And I say that because now I have like a clue of how to do it. When you first get in and you think you know a bunch because you're young and whatever, I had no clue. And I know now with systems and good communication and just being honest and being who you are real, it's a great business. And it's a great way to help other investors make a lot of money. And I've managed portfolios. I've seen them be successful, and I'm thinking these guys are just killing it. And that's exciting. The other thing too, of you mentioned about phone calls and people being upset and repairs and that kind of thing. The thing I've kind of lived by for a long time in this business is, if it's not on fire or no one's bleeding, it's really not that big of a deal. And people kind of get worked up by little things. So I get tenants to call and they're upset about whatever, and just kind of let them talk. And then at the end, I'm like, all right, how are we going to solve this? And instead of getting worked up, I'm a pretty easy going guy. And people can get kind of upset about little simple things. And that's, at the end of the day, you're going to go to bed and wake up tomorrow and things will be fine. So as long as nothing's on fire, no one's bleeding, usually everything's okay. And I think that mindset when it comes to real estate too is true. I mean, you got to be smart about your investment, but from time to time there are going to be hiccups. That's investing. There's some, you know, things happen, but generally speaking, if you're smart about it, you do your due diligence, you ask questions, and you communicate, you know, it's going to be fine. And but you have to find someone that's dedicated, and that really knows what they're doing. And again, there are other companies in our area that I think do good jobs. Do I think they do a better job than my company? No. I mean, I'm just being honest. I think we do. We run a really tight operation in the aspect of being on top of things. But again, I don't want to make it sound like I don't have other good companies. There are good ones. But one thing I'll mention to you too, on a side note, that's really helped in Southwest Florida is I speak Spanish, and a lot of people don't know that, and that's huge. That helps tons. In our market, we have a lot of Spanish-speaking tenants and clients. And it's really good when tenants or clients don't know I speak Spanish and they say embarrassing things and I can understand what they're saying. That's happened a few times. But anyway, that for our business, that's been great. That's helpful that we have Spanish speaking tenants and to communicate, some that are kind of broken in English, but they really are comfortable in Spanish. It changes as soon as they realize you speak Spanish. It's like, oh, you know, and they go into the, you know, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable and they can talk. And that I think will only grow with the need for staff that speak Spanish. And I've got staff that speak Spanish too, and that's been helpful. So
yeah, I would agree. There's definitely a lot of benefits. I call it being a chameleon, where depending on where you are in different settings, you can relate, you have commonalities, and you can communicate efficiently with them. With that said, Mike, I definitely want to thank you for your time. You're very generous. You got to go put out some fires now.
yeah. I mean, I hope not. I hope no one's bleeding either. Yeah, no.
Right. No, hopefully, no one's bleeding. That's but right. If anyone out there has any wants to do more research on Mike, please visit lyonsrealestate.com. A great deal of resources, a lot of tricks to help reduce some of those repairs that tenants can take care of themselves. Mike, thanks again for your time. If you want to say bye, now's the time.
Oh yeah, see you guys. I appreciate it. Any questions? And again, I'll give my cell phone out on the video. It's 239-560-6164. If you have any questions, call me. I'd be happy to help you. And even if you're buying property through Alvin and you want to have some questions about rent rates or you know, cost, lease questions, you know, I'm more than happy to help. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Good. Thanks again, Mike. Have a good one.
You too.
See ya.
We'll see you, man. See you.